Initiating download. Podcast download complete. It's the SuperPowHer podcast.
Deya Direct, the fly and fab go-to girlfriend, is all about bringing you interviews
With celebrities.
Information.
And her super friends.
And inspiration that take your life to the next level.
Deya Direct gets real.
She doesn't just interview, she goes in. Deya Direct makes a difference.
With SuperPowHer.
Hey now, it's Deya Direct. This is the SuperPowHer podcast, if this is the first time you're seeing the show. But listen, this is the place where superfly women testify and we share tools to really help you take your life to the next level. And I am so excited about season 2. Not only that, but I'm excited because my good girlfriend, who is or was the queen of radio, and now she has transitioned into the what? King of radio? Child, I don't know, but listen, Miss Dede in the morning is here on the SuperPowHer podcast, and we are going to talk all things super, okay? So, hey girl.
Hey girl.
First of all, let me thank you. First of all, let's cheers because this is
Congrats.
episode 1.
I know it. Congrats.
Yes, thank you. And listen, I'm so excited and grateful that you showed up after being up since 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I know that is not easy. And you just go, and you know, you have this love affair that you've had for quite some time with radio.
Oh my God.
And now you're syndicated. You have been the co-host for so many years with Doug Banks and so many different shows all over the country. And now you have your own morning show.
Yep.
Here in Dallas, but now it's beyond Dallas.
Yep.
And now it's syndicated. So just really quickly, walk us through how you got here.
Well, first of all, thank you, Deya. Congrats again, though, on the show. And I will apologize that I look like somebody from, remember the movie Wayne's World?
Party
Don't
time.
Yeah, look at my hair.
Excellent.
Yeah, my hat. Because, yeah, I do. I wake up every day at 3 a.m. now.
Well, if we got up at 3 a.m. every day and we look like you, we'd be good, okay?
So what happened was, and I was out late last night doing another event, so I didn't get a chance to get makeup, hair done today, so I apologize running around. But how I got here and how I transitioned is I did radio for years. You know, I did worked in Dallas before, San Antonio, Chicago, Philly, and I ended up working as a co-host for the Doug Banks show. And while on that show...
And how many markets was that in?
That show, at its peak, I want to say we were about 50-something cities. We were on in New York, Houston, Milwaukee, Chicago, Savannah. I mean, Jacksonville was crazy. And it was really great. It was a great experience. But working with Doug was one of the best things I ever could have done in my life because I learned how to do radio. And I learned from one of the best. And so as I sat there with him for, years as the co-host, I have ambitions. My mother used to always tell me, when you give up on your dreams, you die. And
You're like your spirit dies.
Yeah, you can't. And because basically she said to me, you achieved a lot of your goals early in life, and then you thought you could just coast. And she says, no, once you achieve one goal, you set another one, and then another one, and then another one. So when I got there to be the co-host, of course I wasn't satisfied. It was like my mom said, you got to keep dreaming. Well, I want to dream, and I want my own show like him. But I knew there were steps to do, and so then I, for a long time, I did both shows. I did Doug Banks' show in the afternoon, and I did mornings in Dallas.
Wow.
As a co-host for 5 years. Both.
Wow.
For 5 years, I would do both.
That's a
mornings
lot.
And that was it. Next thing you know, I took over the show, and now we're syndicated.
I love it. So just kind of walk me through just a little bit because... everybody wants to be a boss, right? Boss chick, boss lady, boss brunch, everything's boss, right? Okay, but now that you're on the other side, like you were a boss chick already, but I know that a lot of times when we covet a different spot, then you get there and you're in a position of leadership. I saw this quote when I was preparing for this interview, and it's a Shakespearean quote, and it's called, "Heavy is the head
that wears the crown."
So from a leadership perspective, speak to that.
It is, and I'll be honest with you, and you and I have had conversations, about the fact that, and I've been having this conversation with a lot of boss women, and the reason why I do that because we're really using that word and we're overusing it to be. And I think that we've got to understand being a boss woman isn't just about a position and a title. You know, everybody's looking for that. But when you get it, guess what? There's a lot that comes with it. And I think that being a boss woman is handling the pressure and the demands and the anxiety of that too. You got to be a boss handling that. And so for me, I think that's what is so heavy is that there's a lot there on my shoulders. There's a lot of people that are depending on me. There are a lot of people that expect me to deliver and everything else. So that's the difference.
You know, that phrase, when you kind of look at the definition of it, it really is talking about there's more to worry about. You know, you have more people to consider. And what people miss about leadership is being a leader is also being a servant. You have a lot of people to answer to, please, a lot of expectations.
And you got to try to juggle all of that. And you want to juggle it with grace. You want to juggle it where you're also being respectful of other people. And respectful of your own time too, and respectful of who you are as a person, so that you're not necessarily compromising who you are, or your values, your core values or morals. And so that is a lot that goes on, you know, and so yeah, it is a little heavy sometimes. I'm like, what did I sign up for?
You wear it well, and that's the thing, because so many boss women wear it well, people assume they're good. You know what I mean? And so there's another side to it. But then, you know, there's that balance of how much do you really share, because some people will, you know, they say familiarity breeds contempt, or people will take your kindness or for weakness or whatever, and so it's kind of like you can't show too much.
Right.
But, you know, you used to be the queen of radio. Now you're calling yourself the king of radio. I want to know why, and also I want to know how the men in your life respond to that.
Well, this is the reason why. You know, when I got started, when they put me in the position as the lead, the female host of the show, because generally, for years, it was the woman on a morning show was normally the co-host, some people would call her the side chick. And I finally got a chance to be the host. I've probably been the host of this show for 6 years now, almost 7. And so when I took over in that position, there weren't as many women doing it. Can you believe that the strides that have been made has only happened in the last 2 years?
Yes, I can.
But when they put me in the position, there were very few women. And then after the success, I guess they're all saying, well, I guess we can now do that. And so, yeah. But the thing about it is that, so when they put me in the position as a woman, I was going up against some of the greats. I was going up with the greatest to me, Tom Joyner, in urban radio. I'm going up against him in the morning in Dallas. And I was also going up against...
How did that feel?
I wanted to be like him, actually. And I never knew this. You know, I'm a big person who believes about speaking it into existence and setting goals. And I remember back in the day, I used to always say to my mom, I wanted to be like Tom Joyner.
Wow.
And at the time, Tom Joyner was flying back and forth from Chicago to Dallas. He did mornings in Dallas, and he did afternoons in Chicago. And one day I looked up when I was doing both shows. I was doing mornings in Dallas on K104, and I was doing afternoons in Chicago on V103 with the Doug Banks Show. So I spoke it into existence, right?
I love
so
it.
it was really I'm a fan of Tom Joyner. He's set the bar. He's paved the way. I respect him. I am not one of those people who do not respect those that have paved the way. And so I was up against him. I was up against Steve Harvey. I was up against Ricky Smiley in Dallas. And eventually, guess what? Guess who rose to the top? Guess who was winning in that race for the urban listeners? It was me, Dede in the Morning.
Work, girl.
So the woman came in and eventually became the #1 show. And I'm like, well, you know what? She's the king.
I know that's right.
I'm gonna take the king then. If I took the crown, I'm gonna take the king. I'm not gonna make it gender specific. I did that, so
that's what that is.
That's why I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna take their crown, and it was the king's crown. Now I'm the king.
So how did you get a certain kind of response from men about it?
Oh, men hate it to this day. There are a lot of people who hate it. They're like, why? What do you mean king? I'm like, well,
it's a great conversation.
Then I just take it from them. You know, Ricky took it from Steve, or somebody took it from Tom, and then I took it back. I took it there myself, and
we're doing the same job.
So I'm the king too. I'll be the king of mornings in Dallas.
I love it. Hello. So, you know, what's interesting is this really, you said 2 years ago. But this past year, I would say, has been a remarkable year of the woman in so many ways. And Oprah Winfrey did that Time's Up speech, which I think so many of us got chills. I know I did.
I did too.
And then with the whole Me Too movement, how do you relate, respond, understand that movement? And let me just say, like, I've had my own Me Too experiences. A lot of people don't utter those words, but for me, I didn't even realize. Like, one day I was literally on the radio, and it was like when it was all really fresh. And Dede, I broke down.
Wow.
And I let some stuff out that I didn't even know was there. Because we don't allow ourselves to, because you got to keep going. You got to keep going. But you know what? Time's up for other people making your rules. Time's up for a lot of things. What is your response to Time's Up and the whole Me Too movement?
Well, actually, I was never sexually harassed. Never.
Did you sexually harass? No, just
Right, probably. But I was not, unless, because, and it could be this, it was such common practice to be inappropriate in radio.
Right, true.
It's common practice.
So you're like, cool, you're the cool chick.
That I probably wasn't even aware it was happening. And still to this day, just say, hey, it's just workplace conversation and banter or whatever it was. So I can just say, but I don't dismiss it either. And I understand that it does happen to a lot of women. I have a girlfriend now that it has happened to, and she was so scared about filing charges or filing a claim, I guess. I mean, and so I mean, I don't dismiss it. I know it's there. I've been racially harassed probably more than I was sexually in terms of a Me Too movement. You know what I mean? Like I've had instances, because I didn't only just do R&B urban radio.
Right, right.
So I had some instances where I could say it was probably more of a racial problem, not a sexist or female problem.
And how did you deal with that?
Well, of course, this is early on in my career, and I remember talking to my mom and had to figure out, am I going to pursue it? Because my mother used to always tell me, you pick and choose your battles. Now, did I want to be blackballed or blacklisted from what I'm doing today? No. So I let it go. I took my braids out, basically. I had some braids in my head. I was at a station, and the general manager, boss, came to me and said, so you got a live remote, and you know where you're going is very conservative and blah, blah, blah. You're going to take your braids out. I'm like, I just got them like 3 days ago, literally. Had them in for 1 week and took them out.
But there is something to be said for knowing your audience. And when you know the industry that you're in, it's kind of what you sign up for too. Like there is a balance. Like you could be all the way going in, but if you want to be in a certain industry, you have to know the standards and expectations too. And so I think there is a balance.
Right.
And so recently, the Black Women's Equal Pay Day was commemorated, and which is a big issue. I mean, it's one thing to get the title. It's one thing to say, time's up. But the money counts. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if you really want to talk about equality. So that's an area, though, where a lot of women are still intimidated. I'm wondering if you can give us a story or some tips on and some wisdom on the power of negotiation.
Okay, I can just tell you this, that, with me doing radio, one day I looked around and I thought where I wanted to be. And I noticed that every man that I saw, from Tom Joyner to Doug Banks, who I worked with, to Ryan Seacrest, to whoever else that is, out there that's doing their thing, Steve Harvey or whoever. You notice that all those men have representation?
Yep.
Every single one of those guys. And one day I said to myself, I'm doing myself a disservice. I need to go get representation. Not only did I need it just because I also know that as women, I think men know they can play and prey on our weak spot and our sensitivity and our understanding nature. And I said to myself, okay, I see how they're playing. If I want to play with the big boys, I better play like the big boys.
Okay.
And I went and got representation. And I've had it ever since. And I have had no problems, really.
So explain to people what that means. Some people don't know what representation is.
Meaning, I ended up going to get a lawyer or somebody to negotiate my contracts for me, to read through because when you're doing radio or when you're getting to a certain level, whether you're the CEO of a company, you're going to be under a contract. And so for me, I went, okay, I'm not a lawyer, and I need somebody to help. Even though I know I can understand it, there's other things I'm not paying attention to, and there's other legal wording that I probably need to protect myself. And so again, if I wanted them to see me as one of the big dogs, I needed to see myself as a big dog.
Talk on it.
And I needed them to see it too. So I was like, hey, they got representation, I'm getting me some too. And I went and got a lawyer who negotiates my contracts, looks them all over.
So how did people respond to you differently? Like, for instance, year one, where you didn't have an attorney or representation, and then when it was time to negotiate, and you were like, well, my attorney's going to handle that.
No, ma'am.
Oh.
I always had one. I'm going to tell you when I did it.
Oh, excuse me.
When they called me to do Doug Banks' show, to be the co-host on the show, it was ABC Radio Network.
Okay.
I heard ABC. I'm like, no dummy now. I went, ABC? And so I called, there were some other DJs, these guys that were doing mornings at the radio station that I was doing afternoons in Philly. They were doing mornings, and I said, hey, I've been offered a job. I need an attorney or a lawyer, agent, whatever. Who's yours? And they gave me the guy out of Chicago, and I'm still with him to this day. So he negotiated my first contract with Doug Banks as the co-host, and I continued to use him.
So talk to me about what you've learned from being co-host to now being the host. Like, what have you learned about business or yourself, or things that maybe you judged other people who were in the big seat, and now you're like, okay, I get it.
I think the biggest thing that I learned, not only just in business, the biggest thing that I learned was probably the mood of the room. And being the leader requires a lot of bobbing and weaving and acquiescing to sometimes, the people you work with, and figuring how to, lolly between the boss and them, or you get what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of movement and pivoting, and and that's the part I didn't know. And there's a lot of moving parts that a lot of people don't even know and recognize. And you don't always
You're the quarterback.
Right, and you don't always tell them that's what you're doing. And you got to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses
are. So you have to have enough emotional intelligence, basically, to know who you're dealing with and how you have to do what you need to do to get what you want. But you don't have to announce it. You just have to be smart about it.
And know how to do it. It's a lot. It's a game.
So the word of the day.
It's a game.
It is a game. The word of the day is leverage. And I know that you've learned some things about leveraging. What does leveraging mean to you? And for somebody who's like, okay, how do I maximize everything that I am or everything that I'm not? You would say what about leverage? My
thing with that is, and the reason why I always say that, because that's what I was doing when I worked both jobs. And I knew that, here's the deal, I knew that one of them was going to pay me money to quit the other. And even though I was tired, for 5 years I did it, and I would get up in the morning and do a morning show, and I'd go home and take, an hour nap, and then get up and do an afternoon show from 2 to 6. I was like, hey, they're going to pay me. Somebody's going to pay me to quit the other. That's what I mean by leverage. And it's about sacrifice to a certain extent. You're sacrificing something for a moment, for a long-term benefit. And I looked at that as, you know what, I'm going to hedge my bet, and I'm going to leverage this one with this one and this one. And that's all that was for me. And I think everybody's got to figure out what that is. Everybody always feels like, I need to get paid today. I need my money today. And many times people aren't looking down the line what something can get. I was on that show with Doug, the syndicated show, as the co-host. Was I making what I wanted to make? Not necessarily at first. But I said, you know what? I'm going to stay on this show, because guess what? They're listening for him every day. They listen. All the big wigs, people that they were listening to him, but they heard me. So what I did was took that opportunity that I knew that a spotlight was on him, but somehow, even though it was on him, I was right there, and they went, wait a minute, who is that?
Yeah. So
it's just knowing how to use what's in front of you.
I love it. And you take advantage of the opportunity. You know what it reminds me of? It's like sometimes people go to church for the choir, but you're going to get the word while you're there. Right. So while I got you here, I'm going to maximize every single moment. So Dede, what is your superpower?
My personality.
You're using what you got.
I use what I got. That's what I got. That's all I got. You know what I mean? That was it. My mother, she never told us, she never told me you were some beautiful girl, you're going to be a model, you're this. That was never talked about in my household. My mother said you're going to have to work twice as hard as the next person, actually 10 times as hard. She told me, look, my mother was real. You're black too. Mm-hmm. You're a female.
Keep it real.
She was always about that, and she really was not a big person who hinged on looks. Mm-hmm. My mother was not a big fan of that, and so it was never. That's probably why I can walk out looking like that. It's like this. Not about that.
And it's working.
It's not about that. I don't sell my look. I sell my personality on the radio.
But once you're good with you, though, it changes everything, right? People respond because they respond to the beauty and the comfort that you have inside yourself. Right. And so you kind of talked about your mom, and we talked about this a little bit before. What would you say your testimony is?
Gosh, my testimony would probably be that everybody assumes when they meet me and they see me out when I'm dressed up and the hair's done and the wig's on, girl, that part wig be working.
Yeah, be cute. You be cute, girl.
Right. Mm-hmm. Everybody assumes that, she's got it together, or she never struggled, or she's never. And my thing is, I come from a mother who was a teenage mother. My mother was 16. She had her first child, and she had 5.
Wow.
Youngest of 5, and we really had a hard time. My father passed away when I was 6, and then she remarried, and there was a lot of craziness going on in her life that I witnessed. But she turned it around. That was what I saw. That's where I go, wow, everybody can do that, because she went back to school, got a real estate license, became the big time real estate person.
Really?
Yeah, she's just. And I remember though we were struggling at one point. I was like 19 years old, couldn't go back to school. We had financial problems. I didn't have my Pell Grant didn't come in.
Child, please. Ooh, I remember them days. Yes, child.
Yeah, and financial aid.
Ma'am.
And so they were like, you cannot come back to school until you pay that off. And I go back home, and I'm living with my mom in this little 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment. And we didn't have money to pay the water bill. I was working at a radio station as a receptionist, and I remember walking to work all the time, and for an entire week, nobody knew. My mother and I didn't have any water. Wow. And we would go and buy just gallons of water and try to heat it up and give ourselves whole baths for a week.
Not whole baths.
Yeah. And but I remember during my lunch breaks, I would go to the library, and I would go pick up Architectural Digest and different magazines and just look through them, and I would see New York, and I want to live there, and I'd see houses, I want to live like that. And I was visualizing, not realizing, I was visualizing and speaking it and focusing on, I want to live like that, I want that, I want.
So visualizing is what works for you.
Oh my gosh, I'm a big proponent of The Secret.
Mm-hmm. Oh, me too, girl. I love this.
Vision boards, speaking it into existence, and the best book I've ever read, and I always tell people to get it, is The Game of Life and How to Play It.
You told me to read that book.
That's a great.
Yeah.
First line will get you, because it talks about life is a boomerang, and it's the imaging faculty plays into part. Whatever you imagine or you see for yourself.
I love it. So if you were a superhero, what would your power be?
I don't know. What part of it, I would love kindness, because I think that needs to be something that I would wish I could throw kindness into everybody and into everybody's heart. Everybody needs to be a little bit more kind. And then the other one, I'd throw some laughter, because everybody needs to laugh a little bit and lighten up.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
Be like, poof.
We take ourselves so serious.
Yes, nowadays.
There's so much seriousness already in the world.
I was just serious on this damn interview. But it's also a side note people hardly ever see. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes, because you don't, the serious side, you mean? Because right. And that's what I was going to say, what would surprise people about you? I think if I were to answer that, I would say that you're deeper than people know, and you're thinking even when they don't think you are, and you are way far-sighted, and it's just like, but there's a wisdom to not always leading with it, because it becomes too much, it can intimidate people, all of those things. So in the spirit of lightness, okay, I want to play a quick game with you before we go, all right? So this game is called...
Girl, this wine was really good, by the way.
Girl, yes, listen, I want to loosen you up. It's been a long day for you, boo.
I know it, okay.
Right? That's what good girlfriends do.
Yep, okay.
We know what you need, baby. This game is called Fast or Slow.
Okay.
Okay? So do you do this fast or slow, Dede?
Okay.
Eating.
Fast.
Getting ready for an event.
Slow.
Response to change.
Slow.
Why?
Because I fight it just slightly, and then I realize it's the best thing, and then I go with it. Okay. I have to process it first.
Sex.
And do it myself. Fast. I'm like, can we hurry this up? I gotta get up at 3 a.m. I gotta get up at 3 a.m. I don't have time for all of this. It's 8 years into marriage. Sorry, sir.
Ma'am. Okay, making friends.
Slow, fast. Fast, slow. No, fast, but then I slow it down. You know, I can, you get what I'm saying? Like, I can easily say.
I can be friendly,
Uh-huh.
but we can't go too deep.
It takes a long time.
Right, because I don't know how much I want to let you in. Like, we can be cool, but are we really in?
Right. And I was trying to do better with that.
Okay.
But, you know, you get burned. Something be like, well, yeah, me.
do.
I thought we were really close with friends.
I know. I thought we were better. Okay, never mind. Oh, yeah.
You always say, what is it called? Like on a date?
Yeah, like you had sex too fast.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, ooh, you know what?
I thought we were friends.
Okay, but you know what? Thank you. But thank you. That means we didn't waste too much time on this bull.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Okay. So now, in closing, I have to know this because you've got all this great stuff going on, and you are a big time, powerful, busy, sleep deprived woman.
Yes.
Now, but we also know that the male ego is also extremely fragile, and so I'm interested in knowing A, what has marriage taught you about yourself, and B, what is that balance between responding to that male ego, because so many women who, we don't need men for the same reasons. We don't need them necessarily for money. You are sleep deprived, you're tired, and we have some of the same issues because women have ego too.
Yes.
How do you work that all out?
Well, what I've learned, I'll just say this, what I learned about myself is I am still selfish, and I have to work on that.
Be real about it. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are times when I'm always worried about me. I'm tired. I don't want to make dinner. I don't want to go there. And every now I have to get out of that. You know, I have to really force myself to get out of that. Luckily, though, I think one of the things that I've learned, too, is that we as women have to learn and be honest with ourselves about what we are looking for and need from a partner, too, and from our husbands. You know what I mean? And luckily, my husband is, I realized a long time ago that I am headstrong and loud and boisterous and all those things. There is no reason why I need to be laying in bed with a man who's the exact same way as me.
Oh, my God.
So I had to, he's my yin, you know, to my yang or whatever on the yin, you know, that was what I had to find out. My husband is very easygoing. I tell people we stay married because of him, because he's forgiving and he's loving. And so then he makes me, in turn, become a little bit more loving. You know, I look at him and I go, he didn't deserve that. And I have to apologize. I apologize a lot in my marriage. I have to apologize for I'm like, oh, he didn't deserve that. This man is good. This is a good guy. Yeah.
But that's growth. And I'll just say that when you either are in a position of greatness or you're around greatness, you realize growth never stops, does it?
Never. So,
Personally or professionally.
Nope.
And so people always who covet things, they think, oh, when I get there. And the other side is, okay, the way you stay relevant, the way you keep growing, the way you keep your position professionally or you keep your relationship is
keep evolving.
You got to be open.
And open, yep.
So close us out. If you were to give just like one real good tidbit of advice for a woman who thinks she wants to be somewhere close to where your shoes are, you would say what? Never be afraid of failure. Never be afraid, because if you're afraid of failure, you'll never succeed. These are like my favorite quotes. That's one of my favorite quotes. The other one is, well-behaved women rarely make history. And so it's like, make waves. Do you, be you, you know, and go for it. And if you fail, get right back up and try it again. Keep going. Set another goal. Keep going. Just keep going.
We'll be back with more SuperPowHer with your host, Deya Direct.
Have you ever been in a relationship, personally or professionally, that has failed, and it made you feel lost and discouraged? Well, what if I told you that you can literally leverage every single painful situation and make your pain pay you back? After all, it cost you something. Just like with a bank account, you want to get some interest off of everything that you've been through. All the tears, all the time, all the effort. Make it pay you back. Use it. Leverage it. Check out my Amazon #1 bestseller, Failure is Fuel, and experience how my testimony can fuel your life to the next level.
We're back where Superfly women testify. It's the SuperPowHer podcast with your host, Deya Direct.
And let me tell you, chap, that's why you need to get Failure is Fuel.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Go ahead, girl.
Because you realize that, I think that's really the beauty of it, is we fear failure, but what you don't realize is you need the process, because you don't know what you don't know. And it's not the end of the story unless you allow it to be, right? And so I appreciate you, Dede, sharing your heart, sharing your super story and your superpower all at the same time, even though you are sleep deprived.
Girl, I'm good now. I had that wine.
Okay, no, I don't know what wine does to you, but you must be on some different kind of super strength, superhero stuff, because wine takes me straight to sleep. Okay, but this is what we do. This is what it's all about, and it's good for people to just hear your story and to hear the strengths and the weaknesses. And I'm always blessed to be in your presence. I appreciate you. Listen, ladies, make sure you check Dede out wherever she's going to be as she continues to unfold in different cities in her syndication. And aren't you grateful for this opportunity just to kind of hear her heart and just kind of get the girlfriend side of her, you know what I mean, where she's not in the big chair. I mean, okay,
you're in the big chair.
Does that feel weird to you?
No, I love it. I love it.
So this is the SuperPowHer Podcast. I'm your girl, Deya Direct. If you like this show, make sure you share it. Make sure you comment on iTunes. Tell everybody about it. And until the next time, listen, keep it fly.